What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. I'm joined by your favorite beat reporter, Chris Fedor. What up, Chris?
Happy Easter, Ethan.
Happy Resurrection Sunday to you too, sir.
Get it? Get it? Because bunnies hop, so it's not Happy Easter, it's Hoppy Easter. Get it? Maybe? Possibly?
We've gotten some reviews telling me that I'm not funny. That was not funny.
Doesn't always have to be funny. It can just be fun and corny.
The dad jokes are just starting to hit, huh, Chris?
Yes, I borrowed Giannis's book of dad jokes,
Oh my
and
god.
I read it on every plane ride.
Fantastic. But we're going to talk about something a little bit more serious today, and that is the Cavs and what's going on with them right now, and particularly what's going on with Donovan Mitchell. We know that Donovan Mitchell came back on Friday against the 76ers, and to be frank, he did not look like he was back to 100%. And he hasn't had that bounce that he said that he needed and things of that nature, and it looked like the same thing that happened when he came back against the Rockets and the New Orleans Pelicans, where he was kind of disappointed in how the Cavs have been playing, and that Charlotte Hornets loss might have just put him in the category of, I need to get back out there so we can do some stuff. And the thing that we talked with Donovan about afterwards on Friday was the fact that he said that he's healthy, but he also made the point to say that it's just that time. It's like he has to be out there, whether he's healthy or not, because all the players on all teams are dealing with something, and it's a matter of being able to deal with it and still be able to play. But the Cavs need Donovan Mitchell to be Donovan Mitchell, not some lesser version of himself where he's not playing up to his potential, not playing up to his name. And that has been what has happened in the last two games. Obviously, the Cavs were able to get away with it against the 76ers because Evan Mobley stepped up, Darius Garland stepped up, George Niang stepped up. But against the Denver Nuggets, who are a playoff contending team, a championship contending team, and are now in the top of the Western Conference, it just was a different tier. And when you see that those teams are playing against each other, you can't have Donovan Mitchell not be himself and then expect for other people to pick up the slack and them not do that and not think that they're going to lose by 30. So, Chris, I know you're in Denver now and you talked to a lot of guys. You talked to Donovan. What was the sense in that locker room afterwards?
Tonight was as pissed as Donovan has been all season long, Ethan. Donovan is somebody who is not usually grim. Donovan is somebody who likes to look at the big picture. Donovan is somebody who doesn't like projecting a sense of panic or frustration or disappointment or anything along those lines. Earlier this year, when the conversation kept coming up about the Cavs' uneven start to the year, their inconsistent play, he kept saying, hey, hold on, we're going to be fine. He kept talking like he was optimistic. Today got to him. The way that they played against the Nuggets, losing by 29, not being competitive, getting completely outclassed, especially during the minutes when Nikola Jokic was on the floor. Despite the Nuggets not having Jamal Murray, their second best player and second leading scorer, that got to Donovan. I also think there's some natural frustration that he isn't the guy that he was at the beginning of the year, that his body hasn't responded the way that he wanted it to, that his body won't allow him to physically do the things that he's used to doing when he's out there on the court. So I think that was part of it too. But with April rolling around, it's no longer a situation of we've got time, it's fine, we're going to figure this kind of stuff out. There still is confidence coming from Donovan and other players that they will figure it out and they'll find themselves again. And what has happened here in March will end up being more of a blip. But there's more urgency now with this team. And that starts with Donovan Mitchell, because he is somebody who said at the beginning of the year, hey, if we're still going through these same ups and downs, if we're still going through these struggles, if we're not in the place we want to be as a team and as an organization going into the playoffs, then I will speak of that. I will speak like that. And here we are. The Cavs just finished their worst month of the season. They've been terrible since the All-Star break. And I think because it is now into April and the playoffs are right around the corner, Donovan is not going to lean on the same platitudes that he did at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, the Cavs are 2-5 in their last 7 games. And for a team that is known or is trying to or has been a great defensive team, they're ranked 28th in the NBA in the last 7 games for defensive rating. And for offensive rating, it's not much better. They're ranked 20th in the NBA.
I mean, take it a step further, Ethan, because that's such a small sample size, right? The one that you're looking at is a very small sample size, and we know that they haven't played well. But if you extrapolate that out a little bit further, just go to the All Star break when everything seemed to change for this team. Since the All Star break, the Cavs are 21st in offensive rating, 22nd in defensive rating, and 23rd in net rating. And I asked Jared Allen, I asked Donovan Mitchell, I asked a few other guys, just like, hey, do you feel like that is representative of the team that you are, or do you feel like that's just a short-term blip that points to other circumstances that have been tied into the struggles that you guys have had since the All-Star break? And Jared said, you got to put stock into it. That's a few games. You can't call them all bluffs. This is the team that we are. This is the players that we have, so we need to figure out a way to get back to where we were. It just feels like at this point in the season, Ethan, that players and coaches, honestly, don't have a lot of answers for how to remedy the funk that this team is currently in. And there is a growing sense of frustration inside that locker room just about the way that the team is playing going into the playoffs, because everybody talked about it at the beginning of the year. We want to go on this upward trajectory. We want to get better and better as the season goes on. We want to have more answers at the end of the season than we did at the beginning of the season. And that, for a variety of reasons, that just hasn't happened.
Yeah, and we obviously always talk about the ramp-up period that is necessary for a guy to come back when he's just recovering from an injury. And obviously, this is not just one injury for Donovan Mitchell. It's the nasal fracture on top of an ailing knee injury. And obviously, the knee injury has been what has held him out longer. He was out for 7 games for the knee injury, and he was out for 6 games for the nasal fracture on top of an ailing knee. It's just been a complicated situation for him. And him scoring 13 points and 6 assists on 3 of 12 shooting while turning the ball over twice in the game against the Nuggets, and then 12 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals on 4 of 13. So he's shooting like 27% since he's gotten back. And that's not Donovan Mitchell. We know him to be efficient. We know him to put up shots and make them. Like, that's indicative of what this team builds around. And because he is the engine that gets them going, especially on the offensive end, to see him not be able to shine and then the players around him not step up, it's something that we have to monitor going forward, because if Donovan is not going to be himself for the rest of the season, there is more weight on everybody else, because Donovan Mitchell does take eyes off of those players. So he needs them to up their productivity for the Cavs team to be successful. It's just so much that Donovan brings to the table on a nightly basis that even when we were talking to Nick Nurse before the 76ers game, he said that Donovan's the guy that you have to have multiple schemes for. And the entire scheme changes whether he's in the lineup or not. And because he was in the lineup on Friday, the Philadelphia 76ers had to change their entire game plan. And you saw that with how they were moving around and switching defenses and things of that nature. But the Nuggets, who are more capable and actually have their primary defenders on the court other than Jamal Murray tonight, it was just a showcase that there are different levels to the caliber of teams that the Cavs are facing. And especially during this now 4-game road stretch that they have for the rest of the road trip, these are teams that will give them problems, that will show them defensive fortitude, and will pose something that the Cavs have not had to deal with for a majority of the season, especially when they were having the most success against lesser opponents. So this is a test not only for where the Cavs are going to end up seeding-wise for the playoffs, but it's also how are they going to fare in the postseason if the Cavs don't have Donovan Mitchell at 100%, don't have Dean Wade at 100%, what are these guys going to need to be able to get through that first round? Because we all know that that's what we've said all year, that the first round playoff series is how this season is going to be judged.
Well, we know the answer to that question, Ethan. I think we've seen enough evidence of it. The Cavs cannot function the same way offensively or defensively when Donovan Mitchell is off the floor, and they can't function the same way at both ends when he's limited in any capacity because so much of their offense is driven by Donovan. So much of their offense is tied to him breaking the paint, collapsing a defense, looking for those driving kicks. Tonight he could not break down his defender. He could not get into the paint. He had to settle for a lot of outside shots, just the way that he has had to since the All-Star break. And because of that, the Cavs couldn't get open looks. Max Strus got 2 threes. Darius Garland got a three-pointer. The Cavs lost the three-point battle to Denver Nuggets at 39 points. Think about that. Minus 39. 25 of Cleveland's 82 shot attempts came from beyond the arc because they just couldn't create enough of those on the offensive end of the floor because Donovan was limited, because Darius wasn't effective, and they had to go a different direction in terms of their offense. They started using Evan Mobley more around the rim. They started using Jarrett Allen more in the pocket based on the way that Denver was guarding them and based on the way that Donovan was struggling. And it became a math problem. Threes are still greater than twos. I mean, we definitely know that. But they just couldn't generate enough of those because of what was going on with Donovan. And this has been a consistent thing that we have seen since the All-Star break. And I just don't know what the answer is to the Cavs generating the same kind of offense that they were able to generate in those 6 weeks when Donovan was running the show, when Donovan was playing at an MVP level, when they were bombing away from three, when they were one of the most prolific three-point shooting teams in the NBA, because all eyes were on Donovan, because the defense was so focused on him that created other opportunities for his teammate. But if he can't get into the paint consistently, if he can't consistently collapse the defense, the Cavs just aren't good enough to generate those same quality looks. And if you look at Donovan and the way that he's playing, in the season's second half, Ethan, 56 of his 97 attempts are from three-point range. That's about 58% of his shot profile. All right, in the first half of that season, that number was 44%. Since he came back from the All-Star break, he has taken just 12 total shots inside the restricted area. 12 total. He's only made 4 of them, and 6 have been blocked. So even when he gets into the paint, he's not finishing around the rim because he doesn't have the same explosiveness or lift, or those shots are a little bit more contested around the rim because he's not creating as much separation on those potential blow-bys. So this version of Donovan Mitchell, if this is what shows up in the playoffs, the Cavs are one and done. It's that simple. I don't mean to sound like doomsday, but I can only go based on the evidence in front of me. And if Donovan is less than 100%, the Cavs are not going to be able to win a 7-game series against either Indiana or Miami or even Orlando, because we believe, even at full strength or close to full strength, that the Cavs are going to be in a battle in the first round because of how good the Eastern Conference is, because of how difficult that first round matchup could be for the Cavs. Now you enter in a possibility, not saying that that's going to be the case, but a possibility that Donovan is not going to be at the same level that he has been for much of this season, at least in the first half of the season. Now you're talking about a team that's just average, below average. I just don't think they're going to be able to compete on a consistent basis like this.
Yeah, and I think with Donovan's productivity going down and him not being that same player, it puts a spotlight on all the other players that are not stepping up. I mean, Evan Mobley was 9 of 10, and the only miss was when he took a shot from three-point range, and he had 23 points on the night, but I still feel like I wanted more from him on the offensive end. And then you look at Darius Garland, and everybody has been hating Darius Garland for the last
He was awful.
Yeah, I mean, he was bad today particularly, but even when he's had decent stretches, people have just been like, we expect more because you are getting the most money on this franchise. And right now, it's like, I think Darius always goes through this reacclimation period of his own when Donovan comes back, because he's like, all right, well, I don't want to take too many shots because I got to leave shots for Donovan and I got to yada, yada, yada. But I'm like, dog, you want to be an elite point guard. You want to be an elite scorer. You have to be able to take shots. You see that by the field goals attempted, the Cavs had 82 and the Nuggets had 87. It's not like they shot a ton more than the Cavs did, but they just shot them more efficiently and were getting them up when they actually had the right look. There was no hesitation from the Denver Nuggets. When they got an open look, they were taking it. And I think that's another thing for this Cavs team is like, there's too much unselfishness because they are always all looking for the next play and the next best shot, when in opportune shots come for themselves, they don't automatically take them. And I think that's what this team needs right now is if you are open and you have a shot opportunity, be a little bit selfish and understand that you are also capable of making those shots as well. But Chris, it's also apparent for the defensive end of the ball, they're without their two best perimeter defenders in Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro, and Isaac was out because his big toe, and Dean Wade has been out because of his knee since he practiced at Rice University when they were at Houston. It's been a long stretch without Dean, and I didn't know if you had any updates on that.
So I do, but before we get into that, I just want to address something when it comes to Donovan really quick. Because Ethan, a lot of people are wondering, like, okay, if Donovan needs more time to rest and rehab his knee, why doesn't he sit out? So I asked Donovan specifically in the locker room tonight. I said, is the best approach for your knee moving forward? He interrupted me once because he almost didn't want to answer it, but I followed up again. And I said, is the best approach for your knee moving forward to build it back up with live game reps or give it more time to rest and recover? And he just smirked at me as if to indicate he needs more time to rest and recover, but he understands the calendar. And then he said, I've got to be better. And then the interview ended. So the sense that I get is that it is a difficult balance for Donovan and the Cavs, and they're trying to figure out the best possible approach. JB Bickerstaff said after the game that those conversations to this point have not centered around Donovan sitting out at any point, but JB admitted that it's a conversation that he will have with the medical staff and he'll have with Donovan and see what the best approach is. But like on one hand, Donovan does need those live game reps. He does need to build himself back up. He does need to get back into rhythm because that is going to help him going into the playoffs. At the same time, like he needs rest and recovery because that is going to help his knee feel better going into the playoffs. So it's like the two things that he needs right now are counterproductive. I just think he's trying to figure out like what is the best one, or is this just the reality of that something I have to deal with?
That's what I was really getting into at the beginning. Like, Donovan Mitchell is a competitor. He wants to be on the court. And after seeing the last time he came back when he was in New Orleans, he came back after the Cavs had a bad loss. Now, after the Charlotte game, he came back after a bad loss. Like, this guy wants to be on the court to be with his guys. That is a testament to how he feels about his teammates, but it's also a testament to how he wants to compete. And Marcus Morris Sr. even talked about it a couple of practices ago, a couple shoot-arounds ago, talking about, like, I've had competitions with Donovan Mitchell. I've played against him in the playoffs. I've had all of these different things to go and be able to gauge where he is as a competitor. And when it comes to this time of the year, it's his time of the year. And for Donovan Mitchell to have to sit out right now would be not detrimental to his health, because obviously we know that he needs to rest and get reacclimated and things of that nature and get fully healthy. But for his pride, for his ego, for someone who is known as one of the best and wants to be able to show that he can not only perform in the regular season but in the playoffs, being able to do that in the last stretch against teams that we've talked about are in the playoff contention, are teams that they could potentially see in the playoffs. Like, he's not only trying to prove that he can do it in the postseason, but that he can do it now. And it's a competitive thing, like I keep saying.
Yeah, I just think he goes beyond that. I think he just needs to figure out like what his knee will allow him to do in this state and what it won't. It's like one thing to try all these moves and these different movements when he's out there on the practice floor or he's in pregame warmups. But he needs to see how that translates to a game situation, a meaningful game situation, so that he's not trying to figure all of those things out in the playoffs when the pressure picks up, when the intensity is ratcheted up, when the defenses are better, when everything is magnified, and all that kind of stuff. These guys coming back from injury, Ethan, they need these kinds of reps before getting into playoff basketball. We've talked about this before. Isaac Okoro going from the sidelines, not being able to play, into playoff basketball, like that was tough on him. He didn't feel like himself right away when he came back in that series. It took him a few games to get himself where he needs to be. Donovan wants that process to be right now at the end of March and early April. And the only way for that to happen is for him to be out there on the court. It's not for him to sit on the sidelines and rest. Look, in some of these back-to-backs coming up, and the Cavs have a couple of them, maybe there are situations where Donovan sits down and he tries to give his knee a little bit more time. But like the two things that he needs right now are not mutually possible. So it's about figuring out what is best for him to get to a point where he can be the best version of himself or the best version of himself in this current state for this team to consistently compete. And you can tell that it's a struggle when it comes to him trying to figure it out and when it comes to the organization trying to figure it out because it's just not an easy answer right now.
We've talked about it a whole bunch, Chris. Like the need to have that ramp up and to be able to get those meaningful actions and meaningful gameplay and figure out what he's able to do. And I think that's the same for Dean Wade. And I mean, Isaac Okoro, who you mentioned, who was coming back from an injury last season, late in last season, is going to have to do the same now because we don't know how long he's going to be out for that toe injury. Chris, I want to let you get more in depth into Dean Wade because I know you have information on that, and maybe we'll touch on Isaac before you wrap up this episode.
Yeah, I spent a lot of the afternoon today, Ethan, just trying to dig into exactly what's going on with Dean and how the Cavs are approaching this situation. And the sense that I get after having a lot of conversations with people close to Dean, people around the NBA, and people inside the organization is that he is not with the team on this current road trip. He continues to receive treatment. He's back home. A source said he is finally starting to make marginal progress. But like the Cavs have tried different forms of treatment. They're trying to see what works, what doesn't work. Okay, now we're going to try this. How does the knee respond to this? Now we're going to try this. How does the knee respond to this? So it just feels like there's not a lot of clarity and everything is basically hope for the best and hope that these various attempts at different treatment is going to do the trick. But like there's a sense that him being fully healthy and him being right for the playoffs may not be likely at this point. I get the sense from people around Dean that they're just hoping he can make it back for the playoffs. But that's not even a guarantee right now. And I had a few conversations with people. I said, okay, it started out as knee soreness. Now it's being classified as a knee sprain. What grade is it? Is it the MCL? Is it the PCL? And nobody was certain. Nobody has an answer to that at this point in time. So I just think that everyone is kind of in the dark. Everybody is still trying to figure out exactly why the soreness continues to happen and what the best path is moving forward. But as JB Bickerstaff said before the game, like in a way, they just have to prepare their plan for what they're going to have going into the postseason. And they're going to have to continue to rely on George Niang and Marcus Morris and see what variations of those two guys can work on the off chance that Dean just is not going to make it back in time for the postseason.
Yeah, Chris, and I think the last time we talked, the only update that we really had on Dean was that he underwent an MRI and
Right.
nothing structurally was wrong.
That's
But
right.
nobody can figure out what is actually going on with his knee because the MRI didn't indicate to anything.
That's something that makes it tougher, right? Like sometimes when you go through those tests and those scans, you get answers and you understand, okay, this is what it is. This is the form of treatment. Let's move forward with this. But it's been a while since he's been out, and I was told that he just recently started making progress. And it's just like minor progress when it comes to his knee feeling better. There's no on court activity. There's no 4-on-4, 5-on-5. It's all about trying to get the knee to calm down. And again, the Cavs, it's April 1st now as we're recording this. The Cavs are running out of regular season games. They're running out of time before the playoffs. And I think it's going to be a lot more George Niang. I think it's going to be a lot more Marcus Morris Sr. I think it's going to be opportunities for JB to see, okay, what does it look like with Max Strus as a small ball four? What does it look like with Isaac Okoro in certain matchups as a small ball four? Just in case, they're not going to be able to have the Dean Wade that was very important to their success in the first part of the year. If you remember, he was the guy who stepped into the starting lineup for Evan Mobley. And the Cavs, when they were playing the four shooters with Dean next to Jared Allen, and they were able to space the floor and they were able to function a different kind of way on the offensive end, that was productive for them. And he does a lot of little things that help the team. And, many of those things have been missing during this recent stretch. And it feels like the Cavs are going to continue to miss those things, especially when he's not even on this road trip. That's obviously a bad sign.
That four spot where he, like you mentioned, stepped up for Evan Mobley and actually helped this team when Evan was out go on that 6-week stretch that we remember so well. But without him, it makes it difficult. It's also possible that this is the reason that the Cavs stuck with Marcus Morris Sr. for the remainder of the season.
Oh, yeah. Marcus Morris Sr. was, at the time that they signed him, it was a necessity because they were just running out of bodies. But when it came to the decision to re-up him and give him a standard contract for the rest of the season, yeah, an insurance policy based on what situations the Cavs were trying to navigate, and an insurance policy in case, certain guys didn't perform in the playoffs because of either the state that they were in or because they were just struggling in postseason basketball. It's a good thing that the Cavs have somebody like Marcus who can space the floor, can knock down shots, can score a little bit coming off the bench, can defend multiple positions, and most importantly, has a bunch of playoff experience. So you have an idea, if you're JB Bickerstaff, if you go to him in a pinch in a 7-game series, you have a relatively good understanding of what you're going to get. He's not going to be rattled. The moment isn't going to be too big for him. Whether he's productive or not is a completely different question. But at least if you're JB, you have an understanding based on your relationship with Marcus and based on what he's accomplished throughout the course of his career. You have a better understanding of how he's going to handle those moments as opposed to somebody like Dean specifically. So yeah, it was an insurance policy. It was a depth piece. It was protection in case Dean can't get back to 100%, in case he can't be healthy and effective in a playoff series. And like we've talked about, in case George Niang's defense is so problematic that what he gives them on offense is not balancing those two things out. So I think as the season has gone on, Ethan, we all admitted that if there was an area where the Cavs needed a little bit of a boost, if they needed some help somewhere, it was probably at that particular position, just based on the other options in front of them on the depth chart and stylistically how they were hoping to play.
All right, Chris. I know we didn't get to talk about our favorite Batman today, but
Oh, man.
we'll do that another time. But that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs insider and interact with Chris and me by subscribing to Subtext. If you want to get insider information on injury updates, what people are saying in the locker room, what things are happening during the game that you might not be noticing, this is the best place to go. Sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me and Chris. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.